Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Monday Night Football. We got a fantastic game between the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to go over everything that you need to know for DraftKings Showdown and how we're going to attack this slate. We're going to talk about the captains that I feel are the most viable on the night. We're going to talk about some off the radar plays, players that I think are going to be less than 25% to help you differentiate. We're going to build a pick'em card over on Underdog Fantasy, as well as look over at the FantasyLabs lineup builder to see how we're going to build these. Whether you're a mass multi-entry player or not, they have great projections that you can use to help you get better. And if you've never done mass multi-entry, there's always the way to go about it at a really low dollar level. FanDuel and DraftKings both have games for like 25 cents and 10 cents where you can enter 150 lineups for very little money and take a chance at the MME type contest to see if you're the next great mass multi-entry player in daily fantasy. You can ladder your way up without spending a lot of money. So thank you guys for being here. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell, and let's go.
He's a legend.
If you haven't already, go check out the Al Smizzle Fantasy Football channel. It's a spillover channel that I use to house the weekly recap video, as well as some off-season content for your best balls and your fantasy leagues and everything else. You can go over there every Monday afternoon. The recap video is posted. Go to smizzle.tv/ff and make sure that you join the Discord, smizzle.tv/discord. You get an opportunity to get access to all the VIP rooms, as well as the weekly cheat sheet that comes out every Friday. Go to smizzle.tv/discord. You could become a member in the Discord now. No need for linking anything else. The subscription is right there on the top left, $5 a month, as always. Let's take a look first at the injuries, right? So, like, obvious injury, the first one is Justin Jefferson. We included him on the cover because why not? Because I kind of wanted to. I was praying that he would play, but like, it doesn't make sense for him to play. They've got him as questionable. Hey, thanks for that, Vikings. Like, you couldn't have just said, no, he's not. They're just not going to activate him. They got a bye week coming up. They can wait 2 more weeks, really let him get healthy, and then move from there. That's what makes the most sense. So I'm operating under the auspice that he is not going to play this week. We also had Deontay Foreman downgraded to out. This came out really early, so he's not going to play. Bump up the usage for the other 2 running backs on the Bears, Khalil Herbert, and then Roschon Johnson will play the secondary role to Herbert in this spot. So the primary captain, I don't care what you think about him, there seems to be this this divide on Justin Fields. A lot of casuals seem to think, oh, he's just bad. And then there's other people that will look at it and say, you know what? He kind of turned a corner earlier this year. The last couple of years, he's shown flashes, which is what you want to see out of a young quarterback, but he has nothing around him to work with. Came back from injury, ran for 104. In his last 3 games, as I kind of highlighted before, I've been doing these mock drafts and stuff. And the question is, should the Bears hang on to him for 2 more years, or should they get somebody else? Look, the last 3 games that he started and finished, he's completed almost 68% of his passes for 786 yards, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. Like, there's not much else that Justin Fields can do. And one of those games on the road at Detroit, another one on the road at Washington, Denver, that was the start of their comeback when they got this big lead, and then the defense blew it for Chicago. He's doing all that he can, and he offers us the best opportunity with no Justin Fields there at a 35+ point game, and he can spread it around if you wanted to use somebody else on his team. Like if you think that DJ Moore, who has had a fantastic couple of games this season when Fields was there, could outscore him, go for it. He didn't even have a fantastic game last week, only accounting for 1 touchdown, but still posted 24+ DraftKings points. So he is the optimal captain on the slate. If you're going to play him, we're going to make sure that we use 2 of his pass catchers. DJ Moore, not going to include the running backs in that one. Komet, Mooney would be in that grouping. Santos, because the kicker does correlate very well. And then add in Scott and St. Brown and Tunyon and anybody else that would be in that group. Make sure that you have at least 2 of his pass catchers, because if he has that really monstrous day, he's going to drag along at least 1, if not 2, of his pass catchers. On the other side, the Pastronaut, Joshua Dobbs. the revival. The guy's been on like every team. He's been on the Browns. He's been on Tennessee. He's been on Minnesota. He's been on Arizona. He's doing extremely well with what he has. Doubling up his interceptions with touchdowns, which is a positive thing. Solid rating of 84.5. He makes for a great backup. He's not the guy you want leading your team if you have playoff or championship aspirations. But for fantasy, which is all we care about, he contributes more than enough on the ground. A rushing touchdown in each of the last 5 games. Unfortunately, he puts the ball on the ground a whole bunch too. It is what it is. He has enough weapons to spread it all around here in Minnesota to everybody that he's got. So if you think that he's going to post another game where he's an optimal captain, like if he gets 27 points, 24, 25, he's at least in the market to be the optimal captain, as long as nobody goes bonkers in his pass catching group and nobody on the other side does exceptionally well. Also, that 1.5x matters. Building the same sort of group minus Jefferson, sad. Addison, not going to include the running backs. They just don't involve them over 15% of the target market share. Osborne, Joseph, Oliver at 2,600, Powell, everybody that's going to catch passes gets included in that group. The more serious captain plays, in my opinion, on Minnesota, one would be TJ Hawkinson. In the case that Dobbs has a really solid game and does not contribute a rushing touchdown like he has the last 5, I just don't think that's all that sustainable with where his rushing touchdowns are coming from. They're not Jalen Hurts type rushes from the one sneaks, everything else like that, where it's this predictable play anytime there's a offensive PI. Like, he's like finding the end zone, which is great. It's great for his team, but it's not all that sustainable. But 15 targets, 12 targets, 12 targets, 9 targets, that is sustainable in the absence of Justin Jefferson, an extremely valuable pass catcher who happens to play the tight end position, which does not matter when it comes to Showdown. If you play him in the captain spot for 13.5, that happens to me every week with this video, right? You're going to be tying Joshua Dobbs to him, because if Hawkinson has that sort of night, 25 to 35 fantasy points, multiplied by 1.5, Dobbs is going to have a good enough night to be dragged along in that lineup. Same thing goes for Jordan Addison, who really hasn't taken off the way that he was taking off with Kirk Cousins. These were the Kirk Cousins game. Cousins gets hurt, and then the last few games have been Dobbs games, and he just doesn't have the same connection. He doesn't have the same trust. He doesn't, whatever, the je ne sais quoi, whatever you want to call it. He does not have that it factor with Joshua Dobbs that he had with Kirk Cousins. Cousins believed in him. He trusted him. He was able to deliver the ball on time and on target to Addison when he was a secondary receiver to Justin Jefferson. And then when Jefferson left, he started getting peppered with targets. That seems to have gone away, but the downfield ability for Addison is, and his ability to get behind a defense is always going to keep him in play for me at the captain spots. On the other side, and again, if I play Addison, I'm going to be utilizing Dobbs in that lineup. On the other side, I spoke about DJ Moore. It happens every single time. I talked about how DJ Moore has had a couple of really big games, 30 fantasy points, 52 fantasy points against Denver and against Washington. Those two monstrous games that Fields had corresponded with 131 yards, 230 yards. He also had 8 touchdowns, Fields did, over those 2 games. And then another big game against Detroit, 7 catches for 96 and a tutty, 22.6. You multiply that by 1.5, you have a monstrous game any way you slice it. Moore is leaned on very much so by Fields. If Moore is going to have a big game, Fields is going to get dragged along in that. Yes, I always get asked the question, should I double stack Fields like in normal GPPs? Yes, because if he's going to have a big day, like those 4 touchdown days, if a tournament winning type day, he's going to throw touchdowns as well as just running them. He's not always going to run for 250 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. More realistic, he's going to throw for multiple passing touchdowns, run for 80 something yards, and a rushing touchdown. Those are the really big tournament winning days. Those days would include DJ Moore having a monster day. They could also include Cole Kmet having that monster day. We've seen him post a few big scores against New Orleans, 23.5, 27.6 against Denver. Again, one of those 4 touchdown days from Justin Fields as well. And then there's one other captain that I think is in play on this slate, and it's an uncorrelated running back. It's going to be Khalil Herbert. He's going to be I think he's going to be one of the lower drafted quarterbacks, behind Fields, behind Moore, behind Kmet, behind Hawkinson, and probably behind Joshua Dobbs as well, making him like the 6th most rostered captain and the last viable captain, in my opinion, to be able to plug into this spot. There is obviously a chance that Minnesota, although they are at home and they are favored by 3 points in this game, the Bears have not been inept at running the football. We've seen them do it very well with Khalil Herbert when healthy. We've seen them run it in his absence with Deontay Foreman has had some really tremendous games. 80 yards, a touchdown here, 89 and 2 touchdowns here for 33 fantasy points. Herbert is a lot more spry, where Foreman is more of a sledgehammer. Herbert is more of a surgical knife. He is going to be a little bit more efficient on the ground. Detroit's rushing defense is a lot more stout than Minnesota's at home. Also, a lot more adept in the passing game, giving you games like this one with 23 opportunities, 25 fantasy points. If he has a day like that and kind of takes away the touchdowns from the passing game, Khalil Herbert could have himself a captain eligible type night. That's going to do it for all the captains. Let's head over to Underdog Fantasy. And if you don't have an account over at Underdog Fantasy, why not? They're going to give you $100 free for your first deposit to the site. Get up to $100 deposit bonus on your first new deposit to the site when you use code ALSMIZZLE. That's ALSMIZZLE. All one word. Squish it together. I've got a 3 to win 600. Got $100. Justin Fields over 255. Passing plus rushing yards, combined yards. DJ Moore over 4.5 reception, and I couldn't find any positional players that I really like to go with on this pick'em slate, at least not right now. I may come up with some more later. Go check on those in the Discord, as there's always people discussing this. I've got Greg Joseph over 2 or more field goals on the night. Let's go with that. Higher. Lowers are sharper. I like to root for fun football, so I'm going to bet the overs here. 100 to win 600. There's my card. Go check out everything they have over at Underdog Fantasy today. Couple of lower played players, lower priced players, less popular players, guys that some people have never heard of, like Tyler Scott. One of Scott's tots. $1,200 for Tyler. Every single point matters. Relief matters. Salary relief matters. And playing players who project to be under 25% owned matters, because Showdown by nature is going to be a game that you're going to split with a bunch of your closest friends. When you win, you want to be able to hold that number down to as few people as possible, which is why we try to target guys like good old Tyler right here as a low played play. And then just above him, where did he go? Oh, he went because I don't have Minnesota checked off. Powell for Minnesota, running a lot in the slot. 2,000 seems like way too cheap for him. Consistent points, 6.2, 7.5, 9.5. You do have touchdown upside with him. We don't have a lot of downfield throws, though he has broken off a 22-yard catch and a 27-yard catch. A lot of his throws that are his way are low ADOT throws, drags, slants, little things where he does not have a lot of space because he is their slot receiver. However, because every point matters, and because the wide receivers are half the price of the kickers, generally speaking, Santos at 4,600, Joseph at 5,000, you get a player who has, if he was to break off a 50-yard touchdown, that is immediately more than a kicker is going to score you, except unless it's an outlier kicker game. So you have a much higher ceiling from an on-field player who's playing a ton of snaps right now and getting ample targets for Showdown at his price. Love Brandon Powell in this one as a source of salary relief. Let's head over to FantasyLabs and take a look at the rules that I start with every time that I'm going to build a Showdown set of lineups on FantasyLabs. So if you do not have an account and you wanted a discounted membership to FantasyLabs, go to smizzle.tv/labs with an uppercase L. The 6-month package is your best value. You get projections and you get a lineup builder and everything else, as well as their behind the paywall content for NFL, college football, NBA, MLB when it gets here. Golf is running year round at this point, and NHL is in full swing. So you get their optimizer and everything else that goes with it. Pair your captain quarterback with at least 2 of their wide receiver, tight end, or kicker. Captain quarterback with at least 1 of the skill position players from the other side, because you can't have 6 O's. They have to be 5 1s. Pair your captain wide receiver or tight end with their quarterback, and limit to at most 1 defense or kicker from the same game. If you want to up this 1 to 2, you go right on ahead. It's up to you. You build your lineups however you want. And then the last one that I build is this custom one where I have at least 1 running back or wide receiver where his projected ownership is less than 25. Apply those settings, generate the lineups, and realize that you're not going to head over to FantasyLabs and click that green button one time and all of a sudden start printing money. You are going to have to spend some time working on your allocations, your correlations, and your combinations of players to get the exact lineups that you want so that you're happy. It will save you a lot of time. They do have great projections. Go check them out. Support the people that support this channel. So thank you guys for being here. Look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.